In the corner of an old attic, behind dust and silence, a melody was waiting. A half-written song, a forgotten music box, and a name. Emma written on a page that hadn't been turned in decades. She thought she had left music behind. But what if the music never left her? This is a story about memory. Music and the notes we inherit from the people we never really knew. Welcome to Postcard English Stories. This is part one of Melody in the Attic. The house on Maple Street hadn't changed in decades. The shutters still creaked when the wind blew from the east. The front steps groaned under every footstep, and the oak tree in the yard, twisted and towering, still dropped its leaves like clockwork each fall. Emma hadn't been back in years, not since the summer before college, not since her father died, and now she was back not to visit but to stay. Her grandmother had passed away 2 months earlier, and in her will she left the house to Emma. No one really understood why Emma had cousins, aunts, uncles, people more rooted, but the old woman had written in her sharp, careful script for Emma because music always finds its way home. At the time, Emma didn't think much of it. She wasn't a musician anymore. Not since she was 14. She hadn't touched a piano since the funeral. The house smelled like cedar, old books, and dust. Emma spent her first day clearing cobwebs and sorting through drawers full of faded birthday cards and expired coupons. Every room felt frozen in memory. Nothing had been thrown out, just slowly abandoned. It was like her grandmother had lived between the pages of time and never finished the last chapter. The attic was the last place she checked. The door groaned as she pulled it open. Wooden stairs led up into shadows thick with heat and dust. She coughed as she climbed, flashlight in hand. Everything up there was covered in white sheets, like the furniture had been put to sleep. Boxes, old coats, a Christmas tree with tangled lights, and in the far corner, underneath a canvas drop cloth, something else. A bench, a music stand, and an old upright piano. It took her breath away. Emma remembered this piano. Barely. She must have been 6 or 7 the last time she saw it, when her grandmother used to play lullabies upstairs while she drifted off to sleep. She thought it had been sold or donated long ago, but here it was, silent, dusty. Still on the piano's top sat a wooden music box carved with ivy leaves, delicate and worn. Emma picked it up gently. It didn't play. The key wouldn't turn. Next to it she found something stranger, a leather-bound notebook, weathered with age. She flipped it open. Sheet music, handwritten. A full composition, at least most of one. Notes danced across the pages, flowing and soft like a lullaby. The title read, "For Emma, T.L." Her heart paused. T.L. Not her grandmother's initials. She flipped through the pages. Most of the piece was composed in clear, elegant notation, but the final few measures were empty. Just blank staves, no notes, no dynamics, unfinished. Emma sat on the piano bench, notebook in her lap. She opened the lid and pressed a key. It groaned softly. She pressed another, then a third. The sound was uneven, but the tone was still there, deep beneath the dust. She didn't mean to start playing, but her fingers moved. Slowly, hesitantly, they found the notes one by one from the page. She stumbled, restarted, but the melody pulled at something deep inside her. It was warm, gentle, a memory not quite her own. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel hollow when she played. She felt remembered. Later that evening, Emma sat in the kitchen with the notebook spread before her. She stared at the empty final bars. Who had written this? Why was it named after her? And why did it sound like it already belonged to her, even though she'd never heard it before? She flipped to the last page of the book. Tucked in the sleeve was a small envelope, yellowed and unsealed. Inside, a faded black and white photo, a woman, her grandmother, young and radiant, smiling beside a man with dark hair and a violin case at his side, on the back in the same careful handwriting. 1964. Me and Thomas. Emma blinked. Thomas T.L. She looked back at the notebook, and that's when she noticed, scrawled in pencil at the bottom corner of the first page, almost invisible under the notes, "Finish it when you're ready." Emma couldn't stop thinking about the name Thomas. Who was he? She had grown up hearing her grandmother's stories, the same 3 or 4 retellings of life in the 1950s, moving to the US learning English through church hymns, falling in love with jazz. But Thomas had never been part of the script. She turned the black and white photo over again. 1964. Me and Thomas. The woman in the picture looked free, younger, lighter. A violin case rested at the man's feet, and his hand was barely but definitely touching hers. Emma stared at the piano for a long time that night. Then she reached for the music notebook again. She flipped through each page slowly, looking for anything she'd missed. Somewhere near the middle, in faded blue ink, she found a tiny note written between 2 treble clefs. She said she'd always come back to this melody. She, her grandmother, or someone else. She decided it was time to ask someone who might know more. The next morning, Emma visited her Aunt Carla, her grandmother's younger sister. Carla lived in a small apartment above a florist shop, surrounded by teacups and photo frames. She greeted Emma with warm eyes and a tilted head. Well, if it isn't the girl who inherited the attic full of ghosts, she teased. Emma smiled faintly, but her voice was serious. Aunt Carla, do you know who this is? She handed her the photo. Carla squinted, then exhaled slowly. My God, she whispered. Thomas? You knew him? Carla nodded. Everyone did. They sat down with tea, and for the first time Carla told the version of the family story that no one had shared. Your grandmother met him in the summer of '63. He played violin on the weekends at this little cafe on Fremont Street. She played piano there on Sunday mornings. Emma leaned in, stunned. She played in public. Carla smiled. Before your dad was born. Before the war. She was different back then. And Thomas. He was sweet, brilliant, a little lost. His family didn't approve of her. Too traditional, too proud, and said she was too quiet, too Americanized. But she loved him. Carla nodded, and he loved her. Emma's fingers tapped the mug. Why didn't anyone ever tell me? Carla hesitated, because when he left, she never talked about him again. Left, he got drafted in '65. Vietnam, he wrote her letters. She kept them, but we don't know what happened. She never got a reply to her last letter, and she never said his name again. Emma sat back stunned. She kept that piano, Carla said quietly, even when she moved houses. Even when your grandfather passed, I asked her why once. She said, some songs don't belong to one lifetime. That night, Emma returned to the attic with new eyes. She sat at the piano, opened the notebook, and began to play again. The notes seemed clearer now, like they weren't just music, but memory translated into melody. Halfway through, she paused and whispered into the attic air, "Did you write this for her? Or for me?" She turned the music box over again. This time she noticed something different. The bottom was scratched, as if someone had forced it open once a long time ago. With care, she used a letter opener to pry it slightly. Inside, tucked behind the gears, was a tiny cassette tape. No label, dusty and brittle at the edges. She gasped. Emma didn't have a cassette player. Not in the house, not in her life, but she knew one place that might. The next morning, Emma went to the Willow Creek Historical Library. The place smelled like books and time. She approached the front desk. "Do you still have a tape player?" she asked the librarian. A tall man with round glasses looked amused. "Cassette or reel-to-reel?" She grinned. "Cassette." 5 minutes later, they were in a quiet side room, the player clicking into place. Emma inserted the tape, pressed play. A soft static hissed, then faded, and then a voice. Male, gentle, slightly nervous. "For the day she finds this. I hope the melody still finds her." Emma clutched the headphones tighter. Then, violin, soft, wandering raw, and underneath a piano, unfinished, but familiar. Emma sat motionless, headphones pressed tightly against her ears, the static hum of the old cassette player slowly fading. The voice that voice still echoed inside her. "For the day she finds this. I hope the melody still finds her." It was strange, personal, like it was meant for her, but somehow not really. She closed her eyes. The violin played gently, hesitant like someone composing while feeling. The piano underneath came in, unsure at first, then stronger. A series of runs, a familiar chord, then nothing. The tape clicked off. Emma pulled off the headphones slowly, as if waking from a dream she wasn't ready to leave. The librarian glanced over. "What was it?" She didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, "A melody someone never finished." He raised an eyebrow but didn't press. She walked home with the notebook under her arm. The tape rewound and rewound in her mind. That night, for the first time in nearly a decade, she stayed up past midnight, playing. The attic had become her haven. Every night she climbed the creaky stairs with a blanket, a thermos of tea, and the notebook. She played the song over and over. Each time she reached the final page, the blank measures, and just stared. What was it supposed to sound like? What would Thomas have written? But with every hour, every attempt, she realized something. It wasn't about finishing his song. It was about understanding why he never could. She began writing her own ending. The first time it was too soft. It died mid-phrase, the second too dramatic. It didn't belong, the third. Something clicked. She used one of the motifs from the beginning, a subtle echo of the opening line, but slowed it down. She let it breathe. She let herself breathe. It was like the music wasn't coming from her, but through her. By sunrise, she had filled in the final lines. She didn't write her name on it, only the date. The next day, she returned to her Aunt Carla's. Without saying a word, she placed the notebook on the table and opened to the last page. Carla looked at it, eyes widening. "You finished it?" Emma nodded. I think it wanted to be whole. Carla traced the notes with her finger. "Your grandmother would have loved this." Emma smiled faintly. I think she already did. That afternoon, Emma visited the music store downtown, the one with faded posters of jazz legends and a wall of old instruments no one ever touched. She bought a cheap USB mic and brought it home. With trembling fingers, she set it up by the piano, hit record and played. When she reached the final notes, the ones she had written, her hands didn't shake. They moved with certainty, with quiet, earned joy. She wasn't just finishing a melody. She was forgiving herself for quitting music, for shutting down after her father died, for not asking about her grandmother's life until it was too late. The last note hung in the attic air like a secret finally spoken. She named the piece Melody in the Attic by Thomas L. and E. Rivera. She uploaded the recording to a private SoundCloud link. No name, no bio. Just a title, a short note. This is for anyone who's ever had a song left unfinished. May you find your melody again. 2 days later, she received an email. The message was simple. I don't know who you are, but this piece brought me to tears. My sister played this tune for me once when we were kids. Thank you for bringing it back. T.L. Jr. Emma froze. T.L. Jr. She opened the profile. Attached was a photo. A man. Maybe in his 40s, violin case in hand. He looked just like Thomas from the attic photo. Oh, only this Thomas was still very much alive. Emma stared at the screen. The photo. The message. The name. T.L. Jr. He looked so much like Thomas. The shape of his face. The posture. Even the same way he cradled the violin case gently, like it held more than just strings. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. What do you even say to someone who just casually hints that your family's past might be bigger than you ever knew? She typed and deleted 5 drafts. Finally, she settled on Hi. This may sound strange, but I think the melody you heard was written by your father. Would you be open to talking? She hit send before she could overthink it. Then she waited. 2 days later, the reply came. Yes, I've been waiting for this for a long time, Tom. They arranged a video call. Emma's heart raced as the screen loaded. There he was, a calm, keen-looking man in his 40s, seated in front of a wall lined with sheet music and family photos. His violin rested nearby on a stand. He smiled. Emma. She nodded. Tom. He chuckled. I think we have some stories to exchange. Tom told her everything. Thomas, his father, had survived the war, but returned changed. Quiet, withdrawn. He moved to another state, took a job, teaching music, and eventually started a new life. But Tom said softly, he always kept one box locked. He told me, that's my first song. One day someone else will know how to finish it. Emma covered her mouth. Her eyes welled. He passed away when I was 16. Tom continued, and I never opened the box until I was an adult. Inside was the tape. And a photo. He held it up. Emma recognized it instantly. Her grandmother, young and radiant, standing next to Thomas. Did you know about her? She asked, voice trembling. He shook his head. Not until I was much older. I think it was a part of him. He both cherished and grieved. Emma nodded slowly. I think Tom added that melody was his way of holding on. They spent the next hour trading memories. Emma told him about the attic, the notebook, the dusty piano, and the unfinished song. Tom listened quietly, sometimes nodding, sometimes smiling with tears in his eyes. He never talked much about his past. He said, but now it makes sense. Music was how he spoke. Emma agreed, and silence was how he protected what hurt. At the end of the call, Tom said, I have one more thing. He reached off screen and came back holding a folded letter. It was in the same box, addressed only to E. He must have written it after the war. He read aloud. If she ever finds this, tell her I never stopped listening, even when I stopped playing. The melody was always hers, and if someone else finds it, first play it loud enough that she might still hear it. Emma wiped her cheeks. I think she did, she whispered. I think she heard it through me. That night, Emma didn't go to the attic. She lit a candle in the living room and played the finished version of Melody in the attic on her phone. Then quietly, she picked up her journal. She didn't write lyrics or poetry, just one sentence. Some songs belong to more than one heart. The next morning, she woke to a new message from Tom. I've been thinking, would you want to perform it together? Live one last time, piano and violin, just like they meant to. Emma read the words 3 times, then replied, Yes, let's finish their melody. As family, it was a small auditorium, modest stage, maybe 50 chairs, no spotlight, no curtains, just a baby grand piano, a standing mic, and a music stand on a wooden floor that creaked like an old porch. Emma sat on the edge of the bench, hands folded in her lap. Across from her, Tom tuned his violin. His movements, calm, focused. He glanced up and smiled. You ready? She nodded. I think we've both been ready for a long time. The event was called Melody Remembered, a Tribute Through Time, organized quietly through the community center. No press, no big announcements, just an invitation sent to those who once loved music and maybe once forgot why. In the front row sat Emma's Aunt Carla, wiping her glasses for the 3rd time. Behind her were 2 rows of Emma's piano students. Next to them, Tom's wife and daughter holding hands. There was no introduction, just Emma's fingers resting on the keys. And the first note. The melody was familiar now, but it carried something new. Not just memory, not just longing. It carried completion. When Tom's violin joined in the notes wrapped around the piano like they had always belonged together, like Thomas and Emma's grandmother were speaking again, in the only language they had never stopped using. When they reached the final passage, the one Em had written, Tom closed his eyes and played like he was breathing his father's voice into the strings. The final note hung in the air. Then silence. The room didn't applaud at first, not because they forgot, but because something had settled into their chests like a soft ache they didn't want to lose too quickly. Then the clapping began. Quiet at first. Then growing, Emma stood and bowed once, then turned to Tom and hugged him. Family at last.
A week later, the audio recording of the performance was posted online. Within days, messages poured in. This piece brought me to tears. I haven't touched a piano in 10 years. But I started again because of this. Who were they? Why does it feel like I knew them, but Emma didn't respond to most? She didn't need to. The music had already spoken.
She returned to the attic one final time, not to play, not to search, but to leave something behind. She placed the original notebook now, with her completed bars, into a wooden box, along with the photo, the cassette tape, and a short note. Some melodies are passed down, not written down. If you find this, maybe the music is already inside you. She closed the lid gently and left it there. For someone else. Someday. A year later, Emma opened a free piano program for children in Willow Creek. She named it The Attic Room. Each child who joined got a journal with blank pages and a quote on the inside cover, "Play what only you can finish." Sometimes on quiet afternoons, Emma sits by the window. The sun filters through the trees, casting golden spots on her old upright piano. And if the wind is just right and the house is just still enough, she swears she hears a violin playing faintly in the distance. Thank you for listening to Melody in the Attic, a postcard English story. Some stories don't need to be told loudly. They just need to be heard by the right heart. If this story found you at the right time, maybe it was always meant to.